I only know like 4 people here.
Means you're wanted in more than one state.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, Steve. Good
I
evening.
need a gavel.
Hi, Tony.
Right over there.
It's over there somewhere. The gavel.
Yeah.
Welcome to the November meeting of the Waterville
It is
Historical
scary.
Society. Just have a couple of announcements, and I'm gonna hand it over to our distinguished nominating chairman. Just wanted to remind everybody that, of course, you all have heard about Haunted Waterville and what a success that was this year. We will be doing that again next year. And but one thing we're going to do a little bit differently is have the dates set up well in advance, and any historical society member will have a 30-day window to get tickets prior to tickets going on sale to the rest of the world. I guess there were people that got shut out this year, and tickets went a lot faster than we expected. So that'll be one of the benefits of being a member of the society next year is you'll get that 30-day window to get your purchases in. Wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events. December 3rd, a Waterville Christmas to Remember is going to be going on here primarily on 3rd Street, so it's a citywide event. So if you're not doing anything on that Saturday, go down and enjoy yourself. There's a flyer here and
There's a couple in the back.
and a couple in the back. Thank you. And a list of all the things that are be going on. It sounds like quite an event.
Steve, could I interject something on
please do.
behalf of SAC? Do you want to make a brief statement about what SAC will be doing now that Saturday?
My name is Austin Wilson. I am one of the co-chairs for the SAC, the Student Advisory Council of the Waterville Historical Society. And for that Saturday, December 3rd, what we're planning is, I don't know if any of you were in attendance for the what the Historical Society put on at the Robbins House for the Spooktacular, where people came through. Jim told stories around the fire, a few activities in the Sargent House and in the Robbins House. We plan to do something very similar, just all run by SAC members as kind of a fundraiser. So we'll have stories told of different local cultures and how they celebrated Christmas in Waterville. And a few other activities planned. We'll have hot chocolate, looking into getting that. And the whole goal is to have a fundraiser, for us to gather more, as we like to call it, garb. Because we got a lot of new members this year. I think we're about at 26, which is about 50% increase from last year, I believe. Big increase. So looking to fundraise for that and any other things, any other future events we plan to do through that. So.
Great. Thanks, Austin.
Yeah.
Austin, is that down at, where is it?
Yep. So it's going to be at the Robbins House and the Sargent House, that kind of area.
Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
They do need garb. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the SAC members, but they are way too tall for the clothes we have upstairs.
We have a 6'7" member this year.
Thank you. So December 3rd, mark that on your calendars. December 7th is our Christmas dinner out at the golf course. Kit and her team have been hard at work at that. That'll be a real nice event again this year. The next day, December 8th, the Chamber of Commerce is having an after-hours event at the Robbins House, and Historical Society members are invited, so hope you can go down and enjoy that event. That's at 5 o'clock at the Robbins House. So, anyone else have any announcements? Okay, turn it over to Bob.
Good evening. My name is Bob Chapman. I am the chairman of the nominating committee for the Waterville Historical Society. There's 4 members, including me, and board member Merle Wilhelm, and 2 society members at large, Randy Studer and Stan Lepiars. According to the bylaws of the Waterville Historical Society, the task of the nominating committee is to develop a slate of candidates to present for nomination to the following officers for the calendar year 2023. After careful consideration, the nomination committee places into nomination the following candidates. For president of a 1-year term, Steve Lauer. For first vice president for 1-year term, Julia Wiley. Second vice president is vacant at this time. Recording secretary is Kathy Sako for 1-year term. Corresponding secretary is Deanna Bradley for a 1-year term. Director at large, Jim Conrad for a 3-year term. Director at large, Robert Christensen for a 3-year term. And Director at large, Peg Ryan for a 3-year term. Nominations are now open for President of the Historical Society. Are there any nominations from the floor? Keep your hand, don't, not everybody jump up at once.
Did you say nominations for president?
Yeah.
Of the Historical Society. Come on, listen to the whole word.
Steve Lauer, having retired after 42 years in the water treatment and water treatment chemicals industry, has resided in the Waterville area since 1981 and has family ties in the area. His interests include American history, mainly local, as well as an interest in the canal, having had a great-great-grandfather that worked on the canal from around 1840 to 1849. He and his wife have been members of the society since the 1980s, and both have served on the SOS committee. Seeing no nominations for president, Steve Lauer is declared president by acclamation. Congratulations. Nominations are now open for first vice president. Are there any nominations from the floor?
Crickets.
Or the chairs? Don't have to be the floor. All right, our current first vice president, Julia Wiley, as part of her duties, selects and contacts speakers for the monthly programs for the society. Julia is an attorney and has served on a number of boards. Her hands-on history experience started with local history research in Putnam County, Ohio, with an architectural history and preservation fieldwork in college. Seeing no other nominations for first vice president, Julia Wiley is declared first vice president by acclamation. Nominations are now open for the second vice president. Are there any nominations from the floor? This is an open position. We don't have anybody in this position, so if anybody would want to nominate themselves, I'll gladly accept it. Seeing no other nominations for second vice president, I declare this position open.
What's the duties of the second vice president?
Membership chairman.
Membership chairman, yes, I forgot there for a minute. You asked me too many questions right away. So he would be the one who would take care of keeping all the computer records of the membership and sending out notifications.
Sending out newsletters and that sort of thing.
Mailing labels?
Yes, thank you, Stan.
Nominations are now open for recording secretary. Are there any nominations from the floor?
Got a good one.
Current secretary Kathy Sako has worked steadfastly in her duties, attending scores of meetings to keep minutes. She is also active as a docent in the Robbins House Museum and serves on the Museum and Historic Sites Committee. She continues to offer her skills in updating the rotating displays in the upper floor of the Robbins House, as well as the lower floor, such as this year's Former Fashions closing exhibit, which was an excellent exhibit. Thank you, Kathy. Seeing no other nominations for the recording secretary, Kathy Sako is declared recording secretary by acclamations. Congratulations. nominations are now open for corresponding secretary, I'm sorry. Are there any nominations from the floor? Deanna Bradley, currently serving in this position, has diligently initiated contact with members and donors, sending notes of good wishes, sympathy, and thanks over the course of the years. In addition, she is one of the Society's docents for the House Museums and has in the past delighted third graders at the Waterville Elementary School with the Society's Suitcase Museum presentation. Seeing no other nominations for corresponding secretary, Deanna Bradley is declared corresponding secretary by acclamation. Nominations are now open for the 3 director-at-large seats on the board of directors. 3 are to be elected. Are there any nominations from the floor?
Austin Wilson, our current co-chair of the SAC.
All right, Austin.
I do.
What's that? Oh, you wanna nominate yourself? Oh, you're already on.
Do you have Peg Ryan on?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I have things about them, but you've already met Austin, so I guess that's,
Does Austin wanna say something?
I'll say something, yeah. As mentioned before, my name is Austin. I am a co-chair on the our SAC. This is my 2nd year involved in the SAC. And this year we implemented and developed what we call the SAC Act, formerly known as the Student Advisory Council Action Committee. Internally, we call it the Student Advisory Council Advisory Council. Working this year to kind of establish ourselves more as a establish the SAC as more of a prominent figurehead in the Waterville Historical Society through more fundraising events for ourselves, through the education of local 3rd graders with the programs we do in the spring. And yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have 4 now. We're gonna elect 4 now.
Okay.
I'm not sure how they're gonna classify you on that. I know some might have to be done in the,
We'll work it out.
yeah, we will. Anyways,
Doesn't work.
past president Jim
You're
Conrad, otherwise
in.
known as the reincarnation of John Prey, produces programs for our society and other organizations, conducts walking tours of both downtown and uptown Waterville, and gives tours for local 3rd graders. He is also the well-known and hard-working storyteller on our Haunted Waterville trolley tours. He works with the Student Advisory Council, producing educational programs for the 3rd graders. Robert Christensen served as a trial judge on the Lucas County Common Pleas Court and the Toledo Municipal Court for 40 years. Although retired, Robert still serves as a retired judge by assignment by the Ohio Supreme Court. He travels to various courts in Northwest Ohio. Robert has been involved in the community of Waterville since 2006. He's enjoyed the events sponsored by the Waterville Historical Society and attends as many as possible. The ghostly encounters in the Wakeman Cemetery is always a favorite. Margaret Peg Ryan has been a resident of Waterville since 1989, raising her 2 boys here. She has been a member of the Waterville Tree Commission since 2007, and in support, completed the Tree Commission Academy through the Ohio Division of Urban Forestry. In addition, Peg was certified as a Master Gardener through the Ohio State Extension Program in 2008. Peg is a Human Resources and Diversity Manager with the Toledo-Lucas County Port Authority, where she has worked since 1990. Any other nominations? Just so you know, we've made it so we're gonna have 4. Just so you know. because we can always use all we can get. Any other nominations? See no other nominations for Director-at-Large positions. Jim Conrad, Robert Christensen, Peg Ryan, and Austin Wilson are declared Directors-at-Large by acclamation. Congratulations to all of them. Now the fun bit.
Okay. Am I up? All right. All right.
Passing through.
Oh, you were just passing through. Okay, I'm sorry.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
Well, welcome to our November program, this evening. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do the first part of this. I'm gonna sit here. I hope all of you can hear me, because otherwise you're not gonna be able to see the screen behind me. We have 3 speakers here. I'm gonna do just a little context in the beginning as the moderator. And then we have 3 speakers who are each going to cover one of the aspects of Victorian and the, as I call it, the cult of creepy. And that's because I did research that almost made me, sick to my stomach. So, anyway, so we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Your jacket.
Okay, so, again, I just wanna do a little bit of context, and a lot of, historians say the Victorians were very morbid. I'm not sure if they were as much morbid, or if death was just a part of life for them. When you look at the statistics, especially for, the deaths of children, you can see that, the infant mortality was extremely high in the Victorian ages. 13% of infants died before the age of 1. Only, over a third of the children born in England died before they were 15. And if you were from a poor family, you had a less than 50% chance of surviving to the age of 5. In the United States, it really wasn't a whole lot better. The infant mortality rate was 43% of all children born died before the age of 5. And so you can see that a lot of families had children that passed away, and what you'll see later in this program is, I think, a reaction to some of those infant mortality figures. I can understand this because actually, in my own family, my great-grandparents had 9 children and 5 died before the age of 3. So that was not that unusual. And I put that, actually, I'll go back to that other slide. But anyway, there was also a lot of popular literature that sort of fed this idea of the spiritualism. We had Charles Dickens, obviously, in England, and we had Edgar Allan Poe here in the United States. And that literature fit very much in with some of this, the concept of mourning and death and dying. And there were some very famous deaths, and you're going to hear others talk a little bit about these. In England, obviously, with Queen Victoria, her husband, Prince Albert, died, and she remained in mourning for the rest of her life. And here in the United States, the son of Abraham Lincoln died, and we'll hear more about that coming up too. There were some very significant events that caused a number of deaths. We had the Crimean War in England, and we also had the Civil War here, which was devastating to the entire country. And we also had at the same time an industrial revolution and a lot of technological changes, both in photography and embalming. So embalming really, in the modern day sense, was not available until the Civil War era. And photography obviously was developing during that same time, and you're gonna see the nexus of photography and embalming coming up. So let me go back for a moment here. And Kathy Seiko is now going to talk to us about Victorian mourning rituals. And she has a lovely display up here that she's going to discuss. So I think we'll need our lights back on. Thank you.
We have several speakers, so I'm not going to take a whole lot of time. But I have just noticed, I work upstairs quite often, upstairs at Robin's house. And we have these human hair wreaths on display. And I've noticed over the years that people come in and it's like, ooh, who would, you know, why would they do that? Why would they make wreaths out of human hair? And I try to explain to them that before we had photography, this is a way of remembering the dead, a way of even, well, I will tell you, there are two types. This first one would be a memorial wreath. I know that because there's an opening at the top. That was to allow the human, it was symbolic for the human soul ascending up into heaven. So every time a person joined the family, died, friends, it didn't always have to be family members. It was just part of the culture at that time to take a lock of hair and add that to the wreath. When you come up after the program, you will see that in some of them, especially this one, they also would weave in beads and seeds and other things to make it really beautiful. They do look like flowers. So in an age before we had ways like photography and cell phones now with 7,000 pictures of our families, this was a way of honoring our ancestors over generations. You would keep adding to these wreaths, and it was simply a way of honoring the dead and family and friends of yours. So you can come up and take a closer look at these a little bit later. Now, something I found really interesting was the fact I always knew that when people died, they went into mourning, and of course, Queen Victoria, I think it was like 40 years, she wore nothing but black, and she really started this ball rolling, and it became an industry. You know, we're a capitalist society. We had, although it started in England, we in America have always been fascinated by royalty, the royal family, deaths and births and weddings. And so when they started getting into this whole culture of mourning, we just kind of went along with it. We thought it was great, and as Julie said, there were so many things going on at the time, the high death rates, wars. There did seem to be this concentration on death and remembering the dead. So interestingly, I always thought, well, these are mourning outfits that a widow would wear. And it was quite often I always thought a widow, maybe a year of mourning, 2.5 years is what was demanded. Mainly in the elite, the upper classes, they had very strict rules about mourning. The first year and a day, black, 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 black. And not so much shiny black, but the dull black, like crepe. That was, if you went out of your house, you wore black veils over the face. That one isn't even, that's pretty transparent so you could see, but many of them were made of crepe. And what I found was, they were made with chemicals like arsenic and chromium and some other chemicals. Women sometimes died from wearing these veils, these mourning veils. It would rain, the veils would get wet, it would be absorbed into the skin, they would develop eczema and other problems with their skin, and in some cases absorb these poisons, actually get sick and die from mourning for the dead. I just, that really took me by surprise, but it was very strict rules, and it wasn't until the beginning of the 20th century that doctors began to warn against wearing these veils. Okay, first stage a year and a day black. Then you went into what was called half mourning. Now this will look black to you, but if you shine a really bright light on it, it's dark purple. And you were allowed then, the woman was allowed to have dark purple. So lighten up a little bit, okay? After the first, I think it was a year and a half then, you could gradually get into, and again, because of our lighting, you can't see it, but this is a very light lavender. It looks gray in this light, but it does have a lavender cast to it. Could have some decorative buttons. And finally, for the last 6 months of mourning, you could wear a dove gray. You could get into some of the, fancy buttons. This was allowed, so it was a good 2.5 years. And this was for women, and I mean, there was an industry. We had warehouses in Philadelphia and New York. They advertised in women's magazines, and you could, from underwear to shoes to stockings, sleepwear, corsets, everything for mourning. It became a huge industry here in America as well as in England. Jet was, especially in the early stages of mourning, jet, which is a kind of coal actually, but jet was allowed. It can be a very dull, these are pretty shiny, but you could wear beads and things like that that were rather dull, and then gradually over the months you could graduate to a shinier black, but jet was what was allowed. And I don't know, it was just so fascinating to read and find out about all of these very, very strict rules and regulations. And one thing that occurred to me when I was talking about the hair wreaths and how people react, I was just reading, I think it was in Parade magazine a couple of weeks ago, that today you can take the ashes of a loved one and send them up into outer space if you want to, or you can make them into those man-made diamonds and they will incorporate the ashes of a loved one. They make jewelry, they have all kinds of things today that you could, so, are we any better? No, we do that. And it occurred to me, I don't know if you know who Angelina Jolie is, the movie star.
Yeah.
When she was married to Billy Bob Thornton, they wore vials of each other's blood around their necks. So we still have these kind of spooky things that people do because they're in love. Okay, so you can come up and take a look at these things. I don't want to take too much of your time because we got other people that have fascinating stuff to share with you. But I can,
Quick question,
yeah.
were men expected to follow the same time frame?
Oh, you know what men had to do?
Went another way.
I'm so glad you asked that. Men wore a black armband,
And that was all?
black gloves when they went outside. Instead of the white formal gloves, black armband.
How long, a week or two?
Yeah, I don't know if there was any, there probably was a time limit. And by the way, there were different times. Widows, 2.5 years, but if you lost a baby under the age of 3, I think it was 6 months. An aunt, an uncle, they had all these rules for different relatives and friends, how long the mourning would last. But yeah, the men,
Who created these rules?
the men.
Well, no, I mean, like, the 2.5 years. And the,
I think that all started in England.
okay.
But
that
we
was
hopped
societal.
on that, yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, Victoria, 40 years, nothing but black, so, yes.
Kathy, even as late as 1937, there there were some mourning rituals that affected my dad's family. Dad's younger brother died at the age of 18, I believe in 1937. The two edicts his father and mother issued. Number one, no music for a year. They were a very musical family. They couldn't play the Victrola. They couldn't listen to Renfrew Valley Barn Dance on the radio. Dad begrudgingly followed that one. The other one was, Carl, you can't get married for a year. He
Oh,
and my
yeah.
mother were in love. They did not accept that one, but my grandparents did not go to the wedding.
Well, I know I also saw a Vogue magazine from 1932 that still was showing mourning fashions. They were, you know, much less complicated and all, but they were still offering mourning fashions.
Well, who enforces this stuff?
Your peers do.
Well, okay, that's what
You
it
know?
was, peer pressure.
Peer
Really,
pressure, of course. You've seen Scarlett O'Hara dancing when she was supposed to be in mourning. Come on, you don't do that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, well now we're going, keep your glasses handy. Now we're gonna learn a little bit more about photography and the nexus between mourning rituals, I guess you would say, and photography. Bill?
The Victorian era spiritualism and postmortem imagery. What brought about the spiritualism during the Victorian era? You alluded to it, Julia, about photography, but what brought on this otherworldly thoughts among the society? And there was electricity, for one, a power not readily viewed that made inanimate objects animate. You had the telegraph that came out in the 1840s, communication over vast distances, and of course photography, which itself means it means or would mean sun writing. That's what photography means. And you had sight beyond sight caused by sun hitting an element, silver nitrate. And photography at the time, it was called at the time, considered a black art. Not because it was mysterious or anything else, but that the silver nitrate caused the hands of the developers in the photography business turning black from the sun. So there was